Now, earlier today, at exactly 4 minutes after 6 p.m. Kenyan time, Mr. Wafula Chebukati, the chairperson of IEBC, declared William Ruto the winner of Kenya's presidential election by a razor-thin margin. Now, Ruto, who locked in 50.5%, equivalent to 7.1 million valid votes, is now the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya. We now cross over to Vincent Makori, host and managing director, VOA's Africa 54, who is on assignment in Kenya and has been covering the presidential elections from the start. Vincent, how are you doing?
I am fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time to speak to us. Now, Vincent, some of the stakeholders disowned the results, including Raila Odinga's campaign officials, as well as supporters who cited irregularities in the elections and have vowed to challenge the outcome. But that's not all that happened. We also saw Juliana Sherera, who is IEBC's vice chairperson, who was accompanied by about 4 of her colleagues, holding a press conference earlier saying, and I quote, "We are rejecting the results the chairman is about to announce at Bomas of Kenya due to the opaqueness of the process during the final phase." Now, all of that is quite heavy, but could you talk to us about the possible scenarios of what we could be expecting in the next few days?
Well, and actually, if I may begin from the commissioners who rejected those results, it's really very remarkable that members of the commission, more than half of them, because they're actually in total 7, now including the deputy chairperson of the commission, Juliana, disowned those elections. That's very, very significant. And they said they will be presenting the evidence as to why they think those elections shouldn't be accepted. But before the final results were announced, in fact, as you mentioned, Raila Odinga's coalition side boycotted the ceremony. The members who were there at the Bomas of Kenya, in fact, some of them were involved in some scuffles. There was a little bit of fighting there. We witnessed throwing of chairs, people punching each other, and it was a very surreal kind of image there. But, you know, Mr. Chebukati went ahead and declared Mr. William Ruto the president-elect. Now, it's not over, because we can expect Mr. Raila's coalition to petition these elections, to go to court, and this kind of looks like something we've seen in the past.
Speaking of boycotting, one of the things that was highlighted was the technology and the server. This was singled out consistently, not just after the results were given, but also earlier as Kenyans were voting. Now, looking at this, presumably this could go to court, like you said, but is this enough? Do they have grounds that could warrant fresh elections? And if that happened, Vincent, what would that look like for Kenyans?
You know, in fact, it's not just the failing electronic equipment, the voting electronic equipment, the KIMS, but there are claims that there was manipulation of numbers within the system. So in a way, they're accusing some people there of having gone in and changed the numbers and probably added some figures that were not there. Now, we don't know. We don't have the evidence. But now, the fact that the commissioners themselves, 4 members of the commission out of 7, come out and say they have reasons to refuse those elections, it means there was also a problem within the commission itself, that even commissioners believe there was a problem with the numbers.
Listen, this is the first time we're seeing anything like this. 4 commissioners, like you said, coming out. But still, do you think that could warrant fresh elections? Because I know that is what is on the mind of everybody. Because when you have that and you have Raila's camp saying, we want to challenge, is that enough?
The threshold for nullifying an election is very high, but Kenya has been there before. Kenya made the history for being the first country, perhaps in the world, but at least across Africa, to nullify a presidential election in 2017. So that is thinkable, it's fathomable. The question is, do they have enough evidence to convince the courts that actually this election had errors, very serious errors? Now you ask the question, what will things look like? Of course, if that happens, there will be a call for a rerun. Now, there's a difference. If they say they were to do a rerun, that is a repeat of 2017. The question will be, will Mr. Raila Odinga again accept or boycott a rerun? Last time he actually boycotted it because he said it wasn't going to make a difference because the same electoral commission was going to manage these elections. So if there was a rerun, that will be the big question. Will Mr. Raila Odinga accept to go to a rerun with this same electoral commission? So those are two issues that have to be dealt with. The first, the overwhelming evidence, if there is, of errors or fraud. And then, of course, if Mr. Raila Odinga, once again, we'll have to deal with the situation of going back to an election with the same electoral commission that has, by his own account, has bungled an election against him again.
Let's talk about what led us here. Now, the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta, supported Raila Odinga instead of his deputy. Could you talk to us about the dynamics around his decision and what has become the outcome?
Well, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, in the first term with Mr. Ruto, they had what was seen as a bromance. They were like twins. They loved each other, these people. They worked hard together. They campaigned together. They used to hold hands and walk around just like the greatest friends ever. But then they fell out sometime in the second term, the very beginning of the second term. It has been said that perhaps it's because Mr. Kenyatta accepted to reach an amicable arrangement with Mr. Raila Odinga after, that acrimonious election, and therefore, because Raila came into the picture, Mr. William Ruto says it kind of messed up their relationship, and because of that, the relationship got worse and worse. Now, here's the key: Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta ended up endorsing Raila Odinga. The question has been, did it help him? It did not in any way, because in fact, in the same area where Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta comes from, the supporters of the people who would have given Raila Odinga the support revolted against the president and refused to a large extent to give Mr. Raila Odinga those votes, and instead they have overwhelmingly voted for Mr. Ruto. So it was a kind of a very strange situation there, because the endorsement seems not to have done Mr. Raila any good at all. But on the contrary, it might have hurt him. And some people are saying it would have actually been better if Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta had stepped away and let Raila Odinga run his campaigns the way he always has run his campaigns, on his own.
Right. Well, there could be only one way to find out if next time he has that option. As we let you go, could you talk to us about what you think? Do you think there's a possibility that he might be able to run? Now, I know that President-elect called him a worthy competitor, and a lot has been said about how this campaign his campaign was carried out. Do you see him running once again, or could this be it for Raila?
Well, only time will tell. I mean, next 5 years, he'll be like, over 80 years old. So it will be a question of whether he wants to run really again, or perhaps if at some point he may feel like it's time to just take a back seat and, enjoy the gains he made over the years. I mean, he still goes down as a person. Even if he doesn't become a president, he will be remembered for so many things that he's done in this country, including playing a big role in attaining a new constitution, playing a great role in getting this country into becoming a very democratic country. So, and he served as a prime minister, and it was very effective by some other people's accounts. So you may say that he could retire if he chose and still savor some of the successes that he experienced over the years, even despite of not having become the president himself.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. And that is Vincent Makori from VOA.